Let's talk about curiosity, because in its purest form, it's one of the most beautiful human traits we have. Real curiosity opens doors, it leans in, it says, I care enough to want to understand you. When someone asks you questions with genuine curiosity, it feels like safety, like presence, like they're making space for your truth to exist. But liars, they distort that. They put on the costume of curiosity. They mirror the tone, the posture, even the eye contact, but it's hollow. The questions they ask aren't bridges to connection. They're traps. Every harmless question is actually a setup, a probe, a quiet test of what you know, what you'll reveal, and where your boundaries might be bent. They ask things like, why would you think I'd lie about that? Do you really believe I'm capable of that? Who told you that? Don't you trust me? Why are you so sensitive? These aren't questions in search of truth. They're weapons dressed as wonder. And when you answer them, something strange happens. You don't feel closer, you feel smaller. You feel confused. You feel like you owe them something, like you're the one who did something wrong, just by noticing something wasn't right. Liars use questions not to connect, but to disarm. They don't want understanding, they want access. Access to your thoughts, your hesitations, your blind spots. They will wrap a lie in the soft fabric of curiosity so you lean in and drop your guard. And here's the hardest part. To the outside world, they can seem so reasonable, so interested, so attuned. People might say, they ask such thoughtful questions. How could they be hiding something? But you know the truth. Because curiosity without care feels cold. It feels slick. It leaves you feeling exposed instead of seen. So what do? We learn the difference between performative questions and connected questions. We pay attention to what we feel when we're being asked something, not just what's being said, but how it's being said and why. And most importantly, we stop judging ourselves for feeling uneasy. That feeling isn't paranoia, it's wisdom. It's your body saying, something here is off. Genuine curiosity is a gift, but when it's used as a weapon, it becomes one of the most subtle, devastating forms of manipulation. And recognizing that, even when it's uncomfortable, is a profound act of self-respect. There's a big, bold difference between someone who is seeking truth and someone who is seeking to win. People who lie consistently, intentionally, are not on a truth-finding mission. They're playing chess. When a liar asks a question, it's not to understand, it's to influence. It's to test you, to shape what you say next. They're not listening with open hearts, they're scanning for weak spots. Every question becomes a move on the board. You know what it feels like. You start off thinking you're in a conversation, but by the end, you're in a corner. You're defending yourself. You're explaining things you didn't do. You're questioning memories that were crystal clear 10 minutes ago. And you ask yourself, how did I get here? Let me be very clear. Control doesn't always look like yelling or slamming doors. Sometimes control is calm. Sometimes it's subtle. It can come with a soft voice and a kind smile. But underneath, there's a strategy at play. A liar asks, are you sure that's how it happened? You know how emotional you get sometimes, right? Don't you think you're overthinking this? What if you misunderstood what I meant? These questions seem small, even caring on the surface, but they erode your footing. They make you second guess your reality. That's not truth seeking, that's gaslighting, that's control. And here's the gut punch. It often works. Not because you're weak, not because you're naive, but because you're good. You want to be fair. You want to give the benefit of the doubt. You want to believe that people, especially people you care about, are telling the truth. Liars count on that. They depend on your decency to maintain their deception. They use your empathy like a tool in their belt, not to build trust, but to manipulate it. So how do we protect ourselves? We stop mistaking composure for integrity. We stop assuming calm means honest, and we start asking, is this person really trying to understand me, or are they just trying to steer the narrative? Because here's the truth. Truth seekers lean in with humility. They're okay being wrong. They sit in discomfort to grow. Control seekers, on the other hand, panic when they're not holding the reins. They ask questions to dominate, not to deepen. Your clarity is a threat to someone who survives on confusion. And your refusal to abandon your truth, that's your greatest act of resistance. It's showing up with your truth. Even when there's no guarantee you'll be met with kindness. It's saying, here's my story, here's my fear, here's my hurt. And when we choose to be vulnerable, we're not asking for pity. We're asking for connection. We're saying, please treat this gently. But liars, especially manipulative ones, don't meet vulnerability with reverence. They meet it with opportunity. They see your openness not as something to protect, but something to use. You tell them about a past betrayal, and later they'll say, you're just paranoid because of what happened to you. You tell them about your struggle with anxiety, and they'll twist it into, you're just being anxious again, this isn't about me. You let them in, and they take notes. Let that sink in. They take notes. Because when someone lies as a way of life, every emotional share you give becomes a future strategy. Every confession becomes leverage. And it's subtle. They might not weaponize your words right away, no. They wait. They hold on to it, and when it suits them, they strike. It's one of the most painful betrayals a person can experience when you realize that what you shared in trust was stored, not honored. That your softest truths were not held with care, but filed away like ammunition. And here's the brutal irony. Liars will often ask for your vulnerability first. They'll look into your eyes and say things like, I just want to understand you better. Tell me what you're afraid of. You can trust me with anything. I'm not like the others. But they don't ask because they're ready to hold your story with compassion. They ask because they're ready to use it. And when they do, you're left confused, embarrassed, ashamed for having trusted them. But I want to say something to anyone who has experienced that. You are not foolish for being vulnerable. You are brave. Their exploitation of your openness says everything about them, not you. Your willingness to share your truth is not a mistake. It's a strength. It just has to be shared in places where it will be respected, not mined. Here's how we protect ourselves. We watch what people do with small truths before we hand them the big ones. We test for safety, not just charm. We look for consistency, not just chemistry. We ask, does this person make me feel safer after I share, or do I feel more exposed? Because real connection is built in spaces where vulnerability is sacred, where your soft spots are met with softness, not strategy, where your honesty doesn't become evidence against you, but a bridge between you. And that kind of connection, it's rare, but it's real, and you are worthy of it. We want to believe people when they speak. We really do. Because most of us live with integrity. We say what we mean what we say, and we assume others do the same. So when someone looks us in the eye and gives us their word, we want that to be enough. But when it comes to liars, words are their favorite costume. They can wear truth like an outfit, convincing, tailored, even charming. But here's the thing, words can lie, patterns don't. You want to know who someone really is? Watch them, don't just listen. Because liars are great performers in the moment. They're skilled at saying just enough to calm your doubts without ever being fully accountable. They say, that won't happen again. You're the only person I trust. I've changed. This time is different. And maybe the first time it feels, maybe even the second. But if we zoom out and look at the bigger picture, we start to see something undeniable. Promises made and broken. Apologies given, but behavior repeated. Confessions offered only after being caught. Trust asked for, but never truly earned. It's not about isolated incidents. It's not about whether they said the right thing this time. It's about the through line, the pattern, the repeated rhythm of avoidance, distortion, and denial. And here's what's hard. Patterns are quiet. They don't shout like lies do. They unfold slowly over time, which means it takes courage to step back and say, wait, something here isn't adding up. Because we're taught to give people second chances. And we should sometimes, but second chances don't work on someone who is repeating a strategy, not making a mistake. Let me say that again. If it's a pattern, it's not a slip up. It's a system. The truth is, we don't need perfect people. We need honest patterns. People who show up consistently, even when it's hard. People who take responsibility without having to be cornered into it. People who align their actions with their words over time. So here's the invitation. Start keeping track, not to hold grudges, but to hold clarity. Write it down if you need to, not just what they said, but what they did after they said it. Ask yourself, if I muted their words, would their behavior still feel like truth? Because the most trustworthy people don't just sound good, they feel solid. Their patterns whisper, you're safe here. And with liars, no matter how smooth the delivery, their patterns always start to say, this isn't real. Listen to that, trust it. Because patterns don't lie. Trust isn't just about what is said. It's about why it's said. We live in a culture obsessed with what people say. Did they say the right thing? Did they say it at the right time? Did it sound convincing? Was it well worded, emotional, heartfelt? But here's the truth, especially when you're dealing with a liar, the words alone don't carry the full meaning. The real substance of trust doesn't live in the content of what's said. It lives in the intent, in the why. And that changes everything. Because here's what liars know. The right words delivered in the right tone at the right moment can disarm almost anyone. They say, I love you. I'm sorry. You're overthinking it. You know I'd never hurt you. Why would I lie to you? On paper, that sounds safe, that sounds right, but trust is not built on the surface. It's not about whether a phrase checks a box, it's about whether it aligns with action, intention, and integrity. So ask yourself, why are they saying this? Are they saying I'm sorry because they truly understand the impact of their behavior? Or because they want to stop the conversation and get out of the hot seat? Are they saying you're overthinking it to reassure you or to dismiss your instincts and keep you quiet? Are they saying trust me because they've earned it or because they're afraid you've started paying attention? LIARS will often sound emotionally intelligent. They can cry, they can pause, they can look away at just the right moment to seem vulnerable. But remember this, theatrics are not truth. Sincerity isn't in the tone, it's in the consistency of behavior after the moment has passed. It's so easy to fall into the trap of believing the script, especially when you want to, especially when the alternative facing deception is painful, but trust isn't built through a perfectly worded sentence. It's built through repetition of safe behavior repair that's initiated, not demanded listening that leads to change a tone that matches a history of truth. Liars speak to manipulate the moment. Truth tellers speak to restore the relationship. There's a huge difference between managing your emotions and honoring your experience. And only one of those builds trust. So here's your power. Stop asking only what did they say. Start asking why now? What's the motivation behind this? Does this feel like care or like control? Because words without integrity are just noise, but words rooted in genuine care, empathy, and truth. They don't just sound good, they feel safe. They leave you with more clarity, not more confusion. They create peace, not pressure. Not cynicism, not paranoia, just a deep, grounded connection to your own truth. Self-trust sounds like this. I don't have proof, but I don't feel safe. And that's enough. I don't owe anyone more chances than I'm comfortable giving. If I feel confused every time we talk, that matters. I'm allowed to walk away from what doesn't feel aligned, even if they say the right things. Because self-trust isn't about being right all the time. It's about being loyal to your own sense of knowing. It's about not abandoning yourself in moments of uncertainty. And it's about recognizing that your discomfort is data, not a flaw. And I get it. We were taught to doubt ourselves. We were told to give people the benefit of the doubt, to be understanding, to not jump to conclusions. But no one tells us that overextending grace to people who haven't earned it can cost us our peace. Self-trust is what says, even if no one else sees it yet, I'm going to believe me, and that's terrifying. Because the moment we choose to trust ourselves, we risk conflict, we risk being called dramatic, we risk being alone. But the alternative is staying in spaces where our instincts are constantly questioned, where our clarity is clouded, and where our dignity is slowly worn down. Choosing self-trust means reclaiming your authority. It means not outsourcing your reality to someone who benefits from your doubt. It means saying, I don't need someone else to validate what I already feel. And here's the most beautiful part. Self-trust builds real trust with others, because once you know what truth feels like inside your body, you can recognize it and honor it in others. Liars don't come with labels, they come with charm, with carefully timed questions, with rehearsed sincerity. But beneath the surface, it's never about truth. It's about control. It's about confusion. It's about keeping you just unsure enough that you don't trust your own voice. We talked about how they don't seek truth, they seek control. How they exploit vulnerability instead of honoring it. How their patterns betray their words every single time. How the why behind what they say tells you more than the words themselves ever could. And how your greatest protection, your first line of defense, isn't to spot every lie, it's to trust your own clarity when it rises up inside you. Because you will never argue someone into being honest. You will never convince someone to stop manipulating you by loving them harder. The most powerful move you can make is to stop handing your truth over to people who only use it against you. You deserve relationships where you don't have to become a detective to feel safe. You deserve conversations that don't leave you emotionally hungover. You deserve to be believed the first time you say, this doesn't feel right. So let's stop waiting for liars to admit what they've done. Let's stop searching for one more piece of proof. Let's stop bending ourselves into silence just to keep the peace. The truth is, your body knows. Your spirit knows. And when you stop doubting that, when you start trusting yourself more than their version of you, you take back your power. Not with rage, not with revenge, but with a steady, unwavering declaration. I believe me. And I'm done. That's not bitterness, that's boundaries. And that's where healing begins.